we're going to talk today about the 4 different types of workplace personas. And I want to ask you, which one are you? So we're going to kind of evaluate that just based on my body of work. I want to talk to you about a concept that I go into with so much depth in my book that I feel like is so important for you to understand, whether you ever read it or not. And it's your core nature, really understanding what that means for your career. We're going to talk about that. And then, of course, we're all different. We're all snowflakes and we're motivated differently. And so I wanted to talk about the 10 core motivators that I have found in the workforce so that you can get some clarity on what specifically motivates you. So without further ado, let's get into a little bit of housekeeping and then we will get started. And don't forget, SoFi has an incredible partnership with Korn Ferry. So you get career coaching sessions at no cost, which to me as a career coach with my own practice is bananas. And you can download the app if you don't have it to get access to other events. And of course, like I said, I'm going to be taking Q&A at the end. I'm going to be doing some polls throughout so we can engage with each other, get a sense of where everyone's at. And don't forget the new Slack group. If you haven't seen about that in your emails, we have a career Slack group. I'm going to be in there every single week just to support you in networking and connecting, creating a sense of community, and supporting you with career advice to the best of my abilities every single week when I drop into the group, taking a look at a few questions in there that feels like maybe they could add value to everyone. So let's just take a little snapshot of what's going on in the world and in the workforce. So in 2020, only 29% of employees were engaged at work. That means 71% of the workforce spends their day operating at a lower level of productivity, a lower level of purpose. So why is this happening? The top reasons for disengagement and job dissatisfaction seem to be a lack of interest and just basic awareness that there's nowhere for you to grow in your career. So it makes sense if you're feeling disengaged, if you feel like you can't grow. COVID-19 cost 47 million Americans their jobs, insane. And the number of jobs a person will hold in their lifetime is now at 12. I've seen research to support 13. The number is kind of around that number. And I think that's really fun to notice because I was reading the book Sapiens, that super bestseller, if you haven't seen anything about that one. And he talks about how reinvention is the most needed skill in today's world. And that makes sense. You know, I think about my parents' generation. They were very linear in their career. Change was not a normal thing. They would settle into a job and they would grow in their job. Now that's unheard of. That is just not what's happening here. So reinvention and change is the new normal. And in 2020, 9 out of 10 Americans, they worked every night later than ever before. And 89% said they were burnt out. So that's a new study by Asana. So if that's you, you're unfortunately in a lot of company. And I hope that this is just a reminder to take care of yourself because nobody can live their purpose when they're depleted. All right. So number 1 of the 4 different types of personas in the workplace, and feel free to ask me questions about this at the end, and you can just post them in the chat now if you'd like. Number 1 is the talent. So the talent is someone who can create something unique or be someone very unique in the world that no one else can really be. You could argue that Beyonce obviously is talent. Me as an author, there's something about being talent where you are putting out the work. Number 2 is the manager. And I'm really inspired by these people because it takes a really special person to have that natural ability and that workplace persona that is so real for them. So if you're a manager, you have that diplomatic ability to inspire people, to lead them forward. It's a gift. Don't underestimate it. Just because it's easy for you doesn't mean it's easy for everybody else. And then we have the supporter. So the supporter is the diplomatically helpful person that can help other people execute on their vision. Everyone needs a supporter. And then there's the entrepreneur, the visionary problem solver, and they can make the invisible into a reality. So just something curious for you to kind of ask yourself, even if we did a poll here, is what workplace persona do you resonate with the most? Is it number 1, the talent? Number 2, the manager. Number 3, the supporter. Number 4, the entrepreneur. So the more you begin to recognize where your natural strengths are, the more enjoyable your career gets to be. And I find that too many people kind of shame themselves, they're hard on themselves. If you're not meant to be in one of these buckets, it's something to celebrate. Just realize that you're not in the right spot for you. And I'm going to take the poll here. Oh, it says host can't vote. Okay, well, I think I'm somewhere between the talent and the entrepreneur. I'd probably say the talent. Which one do you think you are? All right. So I want to talk to you a little bit about entrepreneurship because being entrepreneurial, when you look at these four archetypes that we just went through, it doesn't always mean that you're meant for entrepreneurship. So I hear a lot of people asking the question, how do I know if I should start a business? How do I know if that's what I'm meant for? And I think it's so fun. I'm seeing some supporters taking the poll, a couple entrepreneurs. Love that. So interesting not to see a lot of managers yet. Maybe you guys are being shy, not taking the poll. And I want to talk to you about what it means when you're probably suited for entrepreneurship versus being an intrapreneur. So, the entrepreneur, they tend to feel pain without full on freedom, creative freedom, time freedom, freedom. So, they hold their financial stability more lightly. They're a risk taker. You need to be able to meet that criteria to be able to step into entrepreneurship. And the intrapreneur, they don't necessarily need full out freedom. They need basic flexibility. So they hold financial stability very heavily. They just need basic flexibility. They're highly creative, but they might be a little more risk averse than their entrepreneurial counterpart. So, one statistic that always kind of makes my heart sink is every day in the United States, 1,200 women owned businesses are launched, and yet only 2% of women owned businesses hit $1 million in revenue ever. And so, I mean, we just saw in CNN all of the news that had come out that in December, most of the jobs lost were by women, and it was industries and job titles that are often held by women that happen to get hit the most in December. And it's devastating. So if you are a woman listening, I hope that you really get empowered, remembering that you are a steward for all of us to keep growing and standing in our careers. If you are a man listening, I just hope that you get inspired to support your female counterparts. I know you probably already are since you're development minded and you're here. And in 2020, 800,000 new businesses opened in the United States alone. So pretty incredible. This is definitely a time of entrepreneurship. So, I want to talk to you a little bit about your core nature and what it looks like, what it means. It's all about how other people experience you when you walk into a room. So, a handful of adjectives that I'll get often. If I said to people, how does the room change when I walk in? They usually will say words like, you're joyful, there's playfulness to you, you're real, you're funny, you're humorous, you've got a lot of depth, you got a lot of wisdom. These adjectives represent my core nature, and it's so important for you to know what yours are. So I wanted to give you some questions for you to kind of do that investigation and discover what is that nature? What is your essence? How do people experience you? And what does that mean for your career? So the first question that I kind of had pointed to here is, how do you think people experience you when you walk into a room? And then ask people, maybe ask a couple of colleagues, maybe ask a couple family members, a couple friends, what 5 words would you use to best describe my presence when I walk into a room? So really powerful to gather that research. And as I said, I love texting people because I can kind of reflect on the information, really take it in. Highly recommend you do that and you don't just have it in a conversation. It's so important to be able to kind of take that moment and really take in what people are saying. And so the types of people to ask. I love asking family members. They see you in one light. Obviously, your colleagues, or if you're in school, students or close friends, they're going to see you differently. So it's good to collect information and ask those questions that I have here below that we just talked about. So powerful for you to be asking people. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about what it looks like when you're bringing your core nature, those 5 adjectives, and you'll kind of collect information from people and be able to assess, which words really land, which words actually feel like me. And one thing to know is that your core nature is so expansive. It's It's just the energy you bring to the room. And the mistake that people make is they limit themselves to one or two basic job titles or business offerings based on one core nature. Here's the deal. The words that comprise your core nature and the energy that you lead with can point to many different careers. That's why I think it's so expansive. There are so many different paths. It always makes my heart sink when people say to me, am I meant for this one thing? It's like, you're so much more than one thing. There's so many opportunities out there for you. So just remembering that. So I just want to ask all of you here, how strongly would you say does your job honor or harness, like really use your natural energy, your core nature? How much do you think your job kind of calls that forward in you and values that and uses that? So let's say 1, it's kind of never, like who you naturally are, your energy isn't really used in your job. 10, all the time. So I'm just curious from a standpoint of what everybody's feeling, like how expressed are you at work? How much does your job honor your energy? And then, another point to make here is just to start taking notice of when you feel most yourself at work. So ask yourself, what task or tasks are you completing when you feel the most yourself? Are you working with people? Are you working alone? What are your surroundings? Really important to know that, like your location, your time of day, your environment. Where do you feel you're most yourself? I know that some people are more productive at different hours. Some people are very impacted by their location, by whether they're working with people or not, by certain tasks that give them energy. It's so important to kind of know this about yourself. More often than not, it's not the what of your career that matters, meaning, the job title. It's also the how, meaning how your job looks, who you're with, what your surroundings are, your context. So something to really pay attention to. All right. And I love that I'm seeing some of you say that 8 out of 10, that you would say 8 out of 10, your job really honors your core nature. I'm seeing a lot of you kind of scattered in lower numbers. It's really beautiful to kind of just have this gauge for yourself and know, like, all right, I'm not really channeling this natural energy that makes me in my job. And that might be an indicator that it's time to make a U-turn. That's what my entire book and career is about. And so I hope that this kind of content here is really helpful for you in reflecting on that. And knowing what motivates you is also key to honoring your core nature. So 2 key primary motivators among humans, this is just basic research, is number 1, to avoid pain, number 2, to receive pleasure. Those are 2 things that motivate people. They'll take action because they don't want to face some sort of scary outcome, or they'll take action because they really want to feel good. They really want to feel great, whatever that thing is. It's highly motivating. And I kind of, before I even go into what I think are the 10 motivators for each individual person for you to explore, I love to know 1 through 10, how motivated are you right now in your career? And we're all friends here. You can be honest. How motivated do you feel right now? I think it's just important to kind of reflect on that and ask yourself that. And, kind of back here, just remember 1, not motivated at all. 10, super motivated. You're the Energizer Bunny. You are so inspired. So just kind of something to reflect on here. And another thing that I want to go through today that I feel like is really important is the 10 core motivators. I talk about these in my book. They're really, really important for you to be aware of. So if you want to take a little screenshot, if that's helpful to you, you absolutely can. So there's meaning is number 1, optimal health. And you can see it spells motivates, motivates. So meaning, optimal health, time, impact, visibility, accomplishment, training, ease, spending, self-expression. These are all, I love all of the people who are feeling super motivated, like their career is totally honoring their energy. I'm so inspired by you guys. That's amazing. And then, of course, it's okay if you are the person that is finding yourself in number 1. It's just an indicator. It's time to come home to yourself. It's time to ask the bigger questions in your career. Nothing wrong with that. All right, so let's go into each of these 10 motivators and what they really look like. Motivation number 1 is meaning. So this means that your skill set and your values are really aligning with a sense of personal mission. You value work that aligns with a sense of spiritual purpose, something that is greater than you. And the thing about meaning is impact is another motivator that I talk about. Meaning is more internal. It's about what means something to you. It's what feels purposeful to you. The impact motivator, which I'll talk about later, is more about others. There's no judgment on this. It's just good to know what motivates you. So do you feel motivated when you have work that really aligns with this personal sense of meaning and purpose, and deeply inside of you, you feel moved by what you're doing? That's one motivator. And I love looking at this idea of being wounded or inspired. So, wounded means it's not coming from perhaps the most authentic place inside of you. So, a person who is motivated by meaning maybe will have a subconscious thought going through their mind that says, I'm going to do this because it makes my life mean something. And then there's somebody who's maybe a little more inspired and a little more authentic with this. No judgment, but it's good to know. They're going to sound a little more like, I'm inspired this to do this because I light up when I do. And that's what means something to me. It's just lighting up. So really important to take notice of those differences with wounding versus inspiration. So optimal health as a motivator reminds me a lot of friends I have. They all work in wellness and health. So people who are motivated by optimal health, they want their career to be a vehicle or at least to be a supporter of their health and of their wellness. If they're not well, if they have a health issue, then they simply are the people who may be motivated by how easy a job is on their body if they're not well. So if somebody has something with their health, their number one priority will be optimal health. It will be taking a job on that doesn't overdo it for them. And then other people who are motivated by optimal health, and that's their core motivator, they want a job that challenges their body perhaps to be even stronger. So they might have a more physical job. The wounded version of this one is, I'm doing this because I'm going to look good. The inspired version is, this career helps me feel well, and that means the most to me in my career. So motivation number 3 is time. So people who are motivated by time as their core motivator, they like to have a sense of control over their time. A lot of entrepreneurs tend to work from this one. So it's important to ask yourself, what's your relationship with time? How does it motivate you or not motivate you to work? And again, a lot of entrepreneurs, but even anybody in the workforce, they want a sense of freedom or flexibility. So if this is your core motivator, this is what gets you up in the morning. This is what puts a pep in your step, is having that freedom or that flexibility with time. So the more wounded version of this is, I'm doing this so I don't really have to work. The inspired version of this one is, I thrive when I have space on my schedule. That's what means the most to me. I need that time and space. I would say this one is probably mine. I absolutely need creative time and space for me to innovate. It's everything for me. So motivation number 4 is impact. So this is different than meaning. Meaning is a personal thing. Impact is an external thing. You are motivated when you feel like the world is different because of the work you're doing. You're committed to a cause. You're committed to a mission. It's bigger than you. You're contributing to others. You're more externally focused. You're not going to be happy in your job if this is your core motivator and you're not able to express this. So if you're doing work that is not changing the world, has no sense of cause or mission, and this is your core motivator, it would explain why you're feeling super disconnected. So the wounded version of this is, I'm doing this so other people see how valuable I am. And then the inspired version of this is, I'm doing this because it means a lot to me to make the world better, to leave the world a better place than when I came in. So the 5th motivator is visibility. So this is work that grants you prestige or recognition. This is wounded work if it's not checked. So there's a lot of people who want visibility because they are so driven by a mission, and that's what motivates them, is to be visible and get that mission out there. The wounded is, I'm doing this so that I feel important. The inspired version of this is, I'm doing this because I have a message and I know the world needs it. Motivation number 6 is accomplishment. So people who are motivated by accomplishment, they live to feel that feeling when you cross something off of your list. They love that sense of completion, that sense of being done. They love deadlines. They love that sense of motion and gratification in completing something. So the wounded version of this is, I'm doing this because the more I do, the more I'm worthy or valuable. And then the inspired version of this is, I'm doing this because I love feeling a sense of completion and I'm inspired by the journey of execution. So you really want to tune into that one for this. And then there's training. So these are the learners. These are the people who they are motivated by their job. If their job gives them an opportunity to grow, learn, or expand. So these are challenges, adventures, and just consistent opportunities to grow. These are what get people up in the morning when they are motivated by training as a core motivator. So the wounded version of this is, I'm doing this because I want people to think I'm valuable and I need to prove my value to myself. Even if you don't hear yourself saying that out loud, that's something that's kind of running in your subconscious mind. And then the inspired version of this is, I'm doing this job or this work because I love how much I get to be learning. That's a core motivator. And then number 8 is ease. So this is work that allows comfort and also avoids pain. So this is based on simplicity. People who are motivated with a core motivator of ease, they are so excited by work that feels like there's simplicity. They feel confident doing it. They don't feel any sense of pain doing their work. I love simple people like this. I feel like we live in such a complex world. It's actually more difficult than ever to be simple. So obviously the wounded version of this is, I'm doing this because I don't believe I'm capable of doing anything else, like there's that approach. And then the inspired version is, I value simplicity. Like, this is what makes my life simple and I prefer work this way. Motivation number 9, all you spenders over here at SoFi. This is work that supports with the idea of making and saving money. It's a career that pays well. It is a deep motivator. And I know all of us want to get paid well, but there are certain people in the population where this is their number one motivator. There's no shame in it. Obviously, it's a bit wounded to say, I'm doing this because money is all that matters. But the inspirational approach is, I'm doing this because I enjoy achieving and earning, and I'm stimulated by what I'm doing to get there. And then motivator number 10 is got to be my favorite, self-expression. So people who are motivated by self-expression, who have that as their core motivator, they feel like their work, it's very important for them. They feel motivated when their work gives them freedom to channel their feelings and their thoughts into ideas. They love creating through their feelings and their ideas. And the wounded approach is, I'm doing this because I need attention. The inspired approach to this is, I'm doing this because I become alive when I express myself. So really, really important to grasp that. So again, here are the 10. I know that all of us are probably motivated by different things, but it's important to know, what is that one thing for you that really moves the needle? So for me, time is a big deal. Self-expression is a big deal. What is that one motivator when you're wounded? Really asking yourself, when you're not totally aligned and authentic, where do you kind of go to as what motivates you? And who are you when you're actually yourself? And, you'll notice when you're not operating in your core motivator and you're operating out of something else, you're a little bit different with how you operate in the world. And usually you'll start to get burnt out because it's hard to do work that doesn't actually motivate you. And I'm so curious about this poll here of, which one are you? Which one do you feel like you are? So number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What motivates you? And I know that maybe it's helpful to talk to a friend about this. So I just want to encourage you, take a screenshot of this, keep this information, maybe talk to some friends and have a conversation and ask them what they think is motivating for them. So important to kind of look at that. All right. And then obviously this one is such a personal question, and I love all the results that I'm seeing here. I want to go back a slide. Okay, a lot of number 4, which is impact. That's incredible. Not a surprise. I feel like if you're in Gen Y and Gen Z, not to say that Gen X doesn't value impact, but that is one of the most serious trademarks of our generation. So really cool to see this. Okay. And then I find that this is just important for you to reflect. How often are you motivated from a wounded place, from a place that isn't really actually authentic to who you are and what actually motivates you? Curious to know kind of where your heart really is, where you're actually operating from. How often are you motivated from a wounded place? So just kind of reflecting on this question. And then another question is, how often do you feel, and this is just for you to reflect on, like you're motivated by inspiration? You can feel people who are motivated by inspiration. And even for me as an entrepreneur, whenever I create something from a wounded place, it's like I just don't get the results, I don't get the sales. And then there's friends of mine who have been such a mirror for me. When I create something from a inspired place, it is so powerful. It always has results. It always does well. It's like the world meets you when you're in a place of inspiration. So just kind of tuning into that for yourself, I think is really huge. So, just a little recap here before we get into your cocktail hour and any questions you have in the chat box. Let yourself get motivated by what inspires you, operate out of your core nature, move towards an authentic career, really starting to pay attention to what motivates you. Don't forget, we have our partnership over here at SoFi with Corn Fairy. It's pretty magical, honestly. For me as a spokesperson, I've never seen a company offer free career coaching. What an incredible service, especially in a time where so many of us need it most. The link is in the chat for you guys to join the Slack group. I'm going to be checking it every single week. I'm going to be trying to just answer a couple key questions in there just to support you in your career. I hope you guys network in there. Thank you so much for being here with me, and I'm excited for you to network with each other and learn how to make cocktails. So have fun.